Oh, thank you. Oh. That was fine, thank you. Oh, good morning, everybody. I am so happy to be here with all the babies and dogs and everybody. It feels like a real family experience this morning, and happy St. Patrick's Day. We are now in the time of light, and it's so encouraging to have more light hours in the day and to just see some of the beauty of the light around us. It was so gorgeous watching the sun come up this morning and seeing the beautiful dramatic light here behind us on the stage. We are so blessed with such creativity in this community, and I'm so glad to be here today. So my talk title today is called Listen Up. And it's about listening and lightening our understanding of consciousness. So I really appreciate the great minds here who proposed consciousness as our topic for this month, because it really challenged me and it made me go a little deeper to try and understand what in the world consciousness really meant to me. So I checked it out metaphysically, and consciousness in the Metaphysical Dictionary says it is the sense of awareness, our sense of knowing. It's the composite of all the ideas we have ever had, all our emotions, all our sensations, and our knowledge. Consciousness is what we are thinking and feeling right this minute. There are 3 levels of consciousness that most of us feel like in psychology, they talk about the levels of consciousness. The first one is the subconscious, which is our memory, where our thoughts hang out, where we remember. Our conscious mind, which moves us through the world during the day, how we're aware of our active thoughts. And the superconscious mind, which I like to call the God mind, or our spiritual consciousness, that's based on our understanding of spiritual truth. Now, consciousness is a pretty wild topic in science because scientific thinkers, even the greatest minds in the world, can't really figure out what consciousness is all about. I was comforted by that. So, science cannot tell us what is good or what is right or what is just. And because of the limitations of science, if we want to find out about spiritual consciousness, we have to go to our own hearts. We have to go within and look for our intuition, our gut feeling, that intuition where we understand something without having to reason it out. I love that. It's our gut intuition. So as I began to think about consciousness a couple of weeks ago, I did go into prayer and meditation, and I also consulted with some of my good friends at Unity of New York, and I got some really great suggestions and ideas. We're a pretty metaphysical crowd, but the winner and the guy who helped me come up with the talk title is Chris DiGiorgio, who is just about to be ordained as Unity minister. And he said, Becca, consciousness is how bright your spiritual light shines. I'm like, wow. In that one little sentence, he took me from the concept of consciousness as knowing all the way to how consciousness makes itself known and how it's manifested, how we know God and how we show God in us. Well, that sounded like a pretty important link that I could run with, and because I looked at the words Christ consciousness or God mind, and it's also referred to as illumined consciousness, where our minds go into the higher realms and we begin to think God thoughts like power and faith and love and peace. Our Christ consciousness is our ability to reason and to make decisions through our awareness of the Christ power within. Now, our goal for this morning is to take a look at that highest level of consciousness and see how we shine in God's light in the world. Now in Unity, we have a really deep understanding about consciousness, and Charles Fillmore said that there are 12 powers actually of consciousness. We're going to kind of zip through them because they are all affiliated with each apostle and each chakra, so we won't go into that. That's many other sermons. We could go into that. But today I want to offer our 12 powers as an amazing tool chest of resources that we can all count on. These are the powers that Mr. Fillmore said they are declared to be to the glory of God and to the service of humankind. Now that's pretty great, actually. I really like that. So the first power that we talk about is our faith. And faith is our ability to embrace spiritual ideas. It's our spiritual assurance where we really have the power to do the seemingly impossible. Whatever we know and need can be accomplished by faith. I love that. Next is our power of strength, and that helps us to endure and persist and remain stable and solid whenever a storm swirls around us. Then we have the power of judgment, also called wisdom or discernment, and that lets us know what to do and how to do it. Next is a very important power, the power of love. As love radiates from our lives, it compels us to see good everywhere and in everybody. Now that's a pretty tall order in our lives today, isn't it? Then we have a little odd one. This is the power of power. And what that means is that we are the power of God in action. This is where we exercise control over our thoughts and our feelings according to divine ideas. And then is our most important and favorite power, I think, the power of imagination. This is where our divine creativity lives, where the formless can take form. I like to think of our imagination as the most unlimited power that we have. With our imaginations, we can truly create anything we can dream of. All things started with an idea and imagination. This podium, solid things like this building, our chairs, or things as ephemeral as justice and peace in the world. All things are possible through imagination. Then we have our power of understanding, which we use to build our vision and comprehend. Understanding comes to us in two ways, of course. We can choose to follow the guidance of God, or we can learn, like my mom used to say, the hard way through our human experience. We can make that choice. Our power of will is next, and that's a critical juncture with spirit where we can choose our path in life basically with every breath. Our free will is a gift from God, and that's where our words, I am, come alive. With every breath, we can use our will to say things like, I am so tired, or I am so sick of hearing that on the news. Or we can say, I am strong and capable. I am a radiant power of light and love in the world. Order is next. Order is our ability to organize our lives and keep things in a natural sequence. We can shape our lives in the right direction with the cooperation of spirit. Then we have the power of zeal. I love that word zeal. It's kind of an old-fashioned word, but what it means is our enthusiasm and our passion for life. Zeal might just be the most perfect power to radiate light because zeal is called our inward fire of the soul. That's what moves us onward to do what is ours to do in the world. Then we have renunciation, which is a great big old word for elimination, where we can toss aside and get rid of our old ways of thinking. And in that cleared space, we can put new and bright energy into our thoughts. And that brings us to our final power, the power of life, the divine energy that propels all action, our ability to energize all divine ideas. The radiant power of life is the channel whereby we become God's hands and feet on earth. So, bottom line, what is light? Well, Eric Butterworth proposed that it's possible that we never really see light, but we only see what it does to us or what it causes us to do. Light may be the one great reality of things that is truly beyond appearance, because that is the presence of God in you as you. When we are in a high state of consciousness, we demonstrate some pretty specific signs of spiritual radiance. Now, I was amazed to read this, but there's a guy in England named Dr. Steve Taylor, and he writes psychology books and is very spiritually propelled as well. And he gave us a list of some amazing enlightened behaviors that almost everyone displays. Now, I think that some of these characteristics are going to seem very familiar to you because this is a very enlightened community. And that's one of the joys that I receive from coming here to speak. Now, some of them may also cause us to want to aspire to certain parts of them. I'm not quite there yet, but we're all walking this road to a higher consciousness together. Dr. Taylor writes that as enlightened individuals, we first experience a heightened, intensive perception of the world around us. We're kind of struck by the wonder of beauty that's all in every bit of our life. It's a heightened sensitivity. It's almost like our filters have been moved away. I remember that experience very specifically from my very first spiritual retreat. We had had a long night of silence, and in the morning we were directed to go out at dawn, have a silent walk with God. Well, that was a trip, to say the very least. I remember walking out into this big open field on a college campus, and that incredible feeling of the sun coming up and the ground fog beginning to dissipate on the grass beneath me. I knew that I had been profoundly changed by that time and that experience. And just as I knew in that moment years ago, Dr. Taylor writes that our enlightenment brings us an awareness that a spiritual force is now present in our lives. I felt it right then as God, and others might call it a higher power or a source. In our newfound lightness, we experience a great sense that the world is a more benevolent place, that all is well. There's a sense of ease that begins to pervade our lives. Well-being is one of the most obvious symptoms of spiritual consciousness, where we seem to become more content, we're freer from worry and negativity, and well-being kind of goes hand in hand with new waves of gratitude. We become overwhelmingly grateful for our health, for our families, for all the wonderful things that come to us in life. And here's kind of a weird, unexpected aspect of higher consciousness. Dr. Taylor tells us that we might experience a decreased fear of death. Well, I thought that kind of made sense because we realize that our own death is not the end of the whole wide world. And I think we understand that our essence, our spirit, and our love that we have radiated into the world remains here forever. When we are long into another plane, it stays forever in the hearts of people that we love and who love us. We begin to see the aspect of our lives on the earth and begin to choose more environmentally friendly lifestyles. I think our empathy and our compassion is increased as we feel a really strong impulse to alleviate the suffering of others and to help people fulfill their divine potential. And finally, as the light shines, we are filled with gentleness and become far less likely to react with hostility or animosity to others. Now that sounds kind of like utopia, doesn't it? Or maybe people would describe that as heaven. I don't know, it sounds like a pretty good place to be to me, though. Something to think about. So when Jesus said, "Let your light shine," Eric Butterworth writes, he meant, let yourself be what you really are. And in his book, The Flow of Life, he shares a charming insight about light I want to tell you about today. He writes, a couple took their little boy with them to Europe. Then they visited many cathedrals as tourists. On their return home, the little boy was in Sunday school when his teacher asked, "What is a saint?" Remembering the many stained glass windows depicting the Christian saints, the little boy said, "A saint is a man who the light shines through." Wow. Right here this very morning, we don't have to strive to be saints, because I clearly see the windows of God in your faces this morning, and the light is shining through. In this moment, I know that you are led by that guiding light and are filled with unlimited, illuminated consciousness. And I want to give you just one more bit of encouragement as we wrap up today, just to know that there is lots of light shining in the world. CBS News anchor Jeff Glor always closes his evening commentary with some wonderful uplifting stories. I just love him. I look forward to it. And a couple of weeks ago, he told a story about a young kid in Newton, Massachusetts, 2-year-old Samantha Stavitz, who was born profoundly deaf. Her parents have worked really hard to learn and teach her American Sign Language, and she's really bright and very excited about her new ability to communicate. She just loves it. She's so proud of wanting to talk to people. However, when she and her mom and dad would go out in the neighborhood, the neighbors that came over to meet them didn't really understand Samantha's enthusiastic signing, and her parents became concerned that she was not getting quite enough social interaction until her neighbors decided to take a truly enlightened action. Unbeknownst to the Stavitz family, they pooled their resources and hired an American Sign Language instructor to come and teach every neighbor American Sign Language. Now, her parents report huge leaps in Samantha's social development, and everybody is feeling the support and the light that's shining from that gentle, purposeful act of conscience. So, let your light shine this morning. And I want to leave you with just a few words from a guy named Yogi Bhajan, who said, "Travel light, live light, spread light, and be the light." And so it is. Amen. Thank you.